Okay, hello, good evening to all of you joining us from the US, and selamat pagi for those who are joining from Indonesia. Welcome to this information session on Fulbright US student opportunities in Indonesia. This is a great program for American citizens who are interested in co-teaching or doing research in the country. I'm Mita from the AMINEF American Indonesian Exchange Foundation's communications team. And this event is held via Zoom meeting. And we also broadcast this event to AMINEF Fulbright Indonesia Facebook page. Therefore, we would like to say welcome to all of you joining either on Zoom meeting or through Facebook page live that you are watching now. We are very excited to have you all here. And in the next 60 minutes, we will discuss administrative aspect of the Fulbright US program, Fulbright US student program, which accepts applications through October 7, 2025. And we will also share experience and tips, and you will hear from two our US Fulbrighters, Parker Raybourne and also Adarsh Srinivasan. And we also welcome questions after the presentation. So to kick off the session, without further ado, I would like to invite my colleagues from Grants for American team, Rizki Arifuddin, the program officer of the Fulbright US Student Researcher, to begin the presentation on this program.
Thank you, Mita. Selamat pagi dari Jakarta. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our information session today. My name is Rizki Arifuddin. I'm the program officer for the U.S. Fulbright programs to Indonesia. And before we get started, here's a quick update about the Fulbright U.S. student program. You might have seen some news recently, and we know that raises questions, but rest assured, applications for the 2025 cycle are still being reviewed as scheduled, as informed by the official of the U.S. Fulbright U.S. student program. You can check on their website for the updated information, us.fulbrightonline.org. If you have applied, any updates about your status will come directly by email. Looking ahead, the application deadline for the 2026 cycle is Tuesday, October 7, 2025 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, I will share a presentation highlighting opportunities about the two programs to Indonesia. Yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I hope you all can see my screen now. Thank you for joining our session. And now I would like to start the presentation. So if you are joining this session, you may be wondering whether you want to do a research or teaching program to Indonesia with the Fulbright US student programs. And we hope that this presentation can, help you answer that question. So, but first, a little bit about Fulbright. Fulbright is a program initiated by Senator J. William Fulbright in 1946. The mission is to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. And the U.S. is a flagship exchange program by the U.S. government, and it is managed by the U.S. Department of State. In Indonesia, Fulbright start to operate in 1952, and it is managed locally by Fulbright Indonesia, or it is known in Indonesia as AMINEF. So Fulbright in Indonesia is a hidden gem in East Asia Pacific region. And why is that? Because many people would like to apply for Fulbright in Korea or other Taiwan or something, other countries, but do consider to apply Fulbright to Indonesia because we have a lot to offer. So Fulbright, it is open for all fields of study. And as you know, Indonesia is a country with more than 300 ethnic groups, more than 500 local languages. It is also a multicultural nation. It is also a country which practice majority Muslim, but we also is the third highest democracy in the world, and that's the the proof that Islam and democracy can coexist. And then Indonesia is also one of the world's largest biodiversity hotspots, which is good for a lot of research and environment. And then Indonesia, when you apply Fulbright, now you no longer need to have a host affiliation. It is no longer required, but it is preferred for research programs. There's a big difference between required and preferred. Applicants may suggest a potential affiliation in their application. And then once you are selected, then we will work with you to finalize the local affiliation after getting the research award. Fulbright also highlights a flexible start and end date with the exception of the Fulbright ETA program. So for the research program, it is very flexible, as I will let you know later on. But for the ETA program, it's a very, because it is a group, you will come as a cohort and leave as at the same time. And Fulbright Indonesia, compared to other countries, we have a very strong support while you are in country. And what are those? I'll let you know. And last but not least, you have to come to Indonesia to, taste our food. We are way better than the Thailand or other food. So Fulbright for faculty members, we have this program, these three programs, but you are now assuming that you are all students, US students. We will only focus on the two programs, which is the Fulbright US Student Research Program and the Fulbright English Teaching Assistant Program. So these are the grant benefits for the programs. You will get a stipend, which will be paid in US dollar. For ETAs and student researchers program, it will be paid bi-monthly, if not 4 times throughout the year. It will be based on the 2026 cycle. You will be getting a round-trip international airfare economy class, and then round-trip access baggage and relocation allowance, immigration and customs allowance, health benefit. And then for the student research benefits, you will get a research allowance, and ETAs, you will get teaching material allowance, internet allowance, and inoculations allowance. Of course, this all will be based on the 2026 budget. So details about the programs. First, about the student research program. The program, it will allow you to conduct research for graduate degrees, whether you are a master or doctorate degrees, or the research is for your independent studies, and it is open for all fields of studies. The program is for 10 months or 12 months with the inclusion of 3 months of language training with the CLIA program. As I mentioned earlier, the research program is very flexible. It can start anytime between September 1st and May 31st the following year. The total benefits for the student research program in Indonesia is $22,800 US. And here's just an example of one of our researcher in 2022, like she did a study on orangutan, and she brought like some students from her host at her site in Kalimantan. And then we have the ETA program. For the ETA program, you will have the opportunity to help teaching English at senior high school or religious schools in Indonesia and engage in community development programs. The program is for 8 until 9 months, and then the placement, it will be appointed by Fulbright Indonesia or AMINEF with cooperation with the Indonesian Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education and the Ministry of Religious Affairs. It will start in August 2026, and the total benefits is $11,000 US. And we just actually wrapped up our ETA couple of weeks ago. So now, if you're wondering about the selection process, there are 2 stages of selection process for the US Student Research Program and also ETA. The first one is a National Screening Committee or NSC, which is convened by the International Institute of Education in Washington, D.C. And then afterwards, The result of NSC selection, it will be forwarded to us in Indonesia, where we will convene an ad hoc committee review. And afterwards, the announcement will be made. So as I mentioned earlier, like Fulbright Indonesia has a very strong program support compared to other countries. Uh, So pre-application, like at this stage, for example, if you are wanting to apply for a research program and you are not really sure, like, who should I affiliate with, even though it is no longer required, but it is always good, like, to know who you will want to work with. If you are not sure about who should I work with, just get in touch with us. I will share our email in the very last slide. You can get in touch with us, tell your name, tell your project, and then let us know like the overview of your program itself, and then we will try to help find potential candidates for you for affiliations. We can also connect you with Fulbright alumni to hear stories or help you review your applications. And then once you are selected, you will have a strong pre-departure support from the virtual pre-departure orientations, and then support about acquiring research or teaching permits, and support when you are applying for visa. And after you are in country, you will have a support about orientation for the student and scholars. It will be 1 or 2 days in Jakarta, and for ETAs it will be 2.5 weeks. And then you will also have access to language training funding, community engagement funding, travel funding for the scholars and student researcher to talk about your research or expertise, funding to additional research, and then you also will have funding for counterpart support from the researchers. And we also will involve you in many of our Fulbright networking events. So for example, in 2024, we had these networking events where we gather all the in-country US grantees and the scholars, student researchers, and also ETAs in Jakarta. And I guess you will hear more like from Adarsh and Parker later on about the in-country supports that we have. So as I mentioned earlier, the deadline is on October 7, and how to apply, just contact your campus Fulbright or scholarship officer or apply online through this website. So yeah, I hope you will be a future Fulbrighter to Indonesia. If you have any questions about the program, you can, email us at info_fulbright_usa@aminef.or.id. We'll be happy to answer any questions, try to connect you with alumni or with potential hosts. And I guess that will be all for me. For now, I'll let Mita continue with inviting the alumni. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rizki. So we heard information on the Fulbright US student program, both Fulbright US student researcher and also Fulbright ETA. So let's complete this information session with tips and also experience from the alumni themselves. And the first one, I would like to invite Parker. Parker Raybourne was a Fulbright English teaching assistant at a vocational school in Cangkringan, Yogyakarta in 2023 until 2024. He is now one of our Fulbright English teaching assistants coordinators. He graduated from Western Kentucky University with a focus on political science, public relations, and advertising. So, yeah, silakan, Parker. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Mita, and good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second here while I share my presentation with you. All right, I hope everyone can see that. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about why I think you should consider being an ETA in Indonesia. And like Mita said, I was an ETA in 2023. It's crazy to me that it was already 2 years ago, but I was in SMK 1 Cangkringan. That's in Jogja. So if you're mildly familiar with Indonesian geography, that is kind of in the middle of the island of Java. So Java is the big island that goes across the middle of Indonesia, and Jogja is in the middle of that island. I have a ton of pictures collected for you today because I think people like to look at pictures, and I think it gives an accurate idea of what your experience might look like if you do choose to embark on this program. So here, my title slide, this is a parade at my school for my school's anniversary, and these are my students and their livestock, which I'll talk more about in a moment, about my school's livestock. So why Indonesia? As Rizki mentioned, Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim majority country. It is one of the world's largest democracies, and it is the fourth largest country on earth. I think the perspective of a lot of Americans is that Indonesia kind of flies below the radar. A lot of Americans don't necessarily know that Indonesia is this large or this consequential on the global stage. You'll see here I said there's 17,000 islands. I see a different number every time. And then, of course, in Indonesia, we have hundreds of ethnic groups. We have rich culture. Rizky mentioned the food. You can see here I've put a photo of a food kitchen at my site. And then, of course, Indonesia is naturally beautiful. So if I could point your attention to that photo on the bottom left of your screen, that's actually right next to my school. And that volcano in the background is Mount Merapi, and it erupts every day. So it was such a privilege while I was an ETA to be there and see the beautiful erupting volcano in the rice paddies right next to my school. And then I think Indonesia is also a good selection for Americans because it can give a lot of Americans the perspective of being in a developing country or being in a developing place. I know before I had come to Indonesia, my only experience with developing countries was from vacation or something like that. So to actually immersively live in a developing country, I think can be a really good thing for a lot of Americans. I will tell you personally, I chose to come to Indonesia because my parents' neighbor, where I grew up, is from Malaysia, and Malaysia doesn't have an ETA program. So he shared with me that Indonesia was similar. And I am so glad that I listened to him, and it's been a great 2 years since. All right, my time as an ETA. So this is my school. I've collected some photos from my school. My school was a paramilitary SMCAW school. So what that means is we used military techniques to maintain discipline and teaching. And then SMCAW is one of the distinctions of schools in Indonesia. And essentially that means that the school is a vocational school. So it teaches vocational skills. At my school, there were 5 vocation tracks. These included culinary, livestock, agriculture, chemistry, etc. So things along that line. In the US, you would call it something like a tech school. My school was in Changringan, which is in Jogja Istimewa. Jogja is often considered the cultural center of Indonesia. I'm sure as you learn more about Indonesia, you'll learn that Indonesia has hundreds, if not thousands, of cultures, but Jogja certainly is the center of Javanese culture. Because of that, culture was reflected in everything that my school did. So you'll see here on the bottom right corner, we have a photo. This is like traditional dress in Jogja. And because it is Jogja, the special region, we wear that once a month. Everyone at the school wears that once a month. And everyone in Jogja, for that matter, wears that. At my school, I taught 10th grade English. So I worked with 10th graders in their English class for 20 hours a week. It's a fully immersive experience. So I was part of my school's community in every single way. This includes extracurriculars. I do want to point out this person in the bottom picture on the left, sitting behind me in the light pink hijab. That is Ibu Latifa. Was my counterpart. She is one of my lifelong friends, and that kind of goes into the lasting relationships that you'll form as an ETA. I'm still in contact with her today. So that's one of the best parts I think about the ETA program in Indonesia. So here's some more photos of school. I won't expand on these right now, but if you'd like to take a look later, I'm sure you can. So why do I think the ETA program in Indonesia is so spectacular? Number one, we have a comprehensive orientation. So you're not on your own. For our orientation, it's typically 3 weeks long, and you learn everything that you need to be successful here in Indonesia. Throughout the grant, we offer professional development opportunities. So this includes continuous learning, conferences, um, continuous language training, things of that nature. We offer language training, so that happens during orientation, and then it also happens throughout the grant. You can get your TEFL and TESOL certification. So we actually require that all of our ETAs here in Indonesia have this certification. And if you don't have it at the time of your application or acceptance, AMINEF will provide the course for that. And I think that's a pretty significant benefit. We offer student programming that I know a lot of commissions do not. So an example of this would be our words competition, where we bring students throughout Indonesia to Jakarta. And you can see a photo of that on the top. That was our words competition in 2023. And then we have additional student programming as well. And then AMINEF offers continuous and constant support. So at AMINEF right now, we have 2 ETA coordinators, myself and Lauren, and then we have the entire American programs team. And there is no problem too big or too small that an American grantee would have here that AMINEF could not help with. And we also offer countless opportunities for growth, which I'll talk more about in a moment. So how has being an ETA in Indonesia impacted me? It's given me a very unique perspective. In a lot of ways, a unique perspective of being in a developing country, a unique perspective in being in a Muslim majority country, a unique perspective as being a minority for the first time in my life. So it's really given me a unique perspective that I don't think I would have gotten any other way. I've formed lifelong connections. So I have connections with my cohort, I have connections with the AMINEF team, and then I, of course, have connections with all of the folks at my community. Professionally, I can definitely attest that I have developed professionally. My soft skills and hard skills have definitely improved through this experience. And then I think this is one of the biggest things. We hear this from most of the ETAs who complete the program here through their surveys. This is the biggest feedback we get, that the program here helps you become flexible. And if you're unfamiliar with Indonesia, I think you will find that flexibility is certainly key here. I now feel that I can do difficult things. I won't sugarcoat it. Sometimes being in Indonesia is difficult. It's an entirely different culture from the one that I grew up in and the one that I'm used to. And everything here works differently. So sometimes there are challenges with that. And then, of course, Fulbright at large is a prestigious program. So that will follow you for the rest of your life. And I can now play gamelan. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, that is me, my school's gamelan band, which they so graciously invited me to attend each week. So these are my tips for applying. If I were to do it all over again, my first step for you would be to understand the grant listing in the catalog. This is the same as the listing on the Fulbright website. So if you go to the Fulbright website, you'll see the listing and it'll have all the details about ETA in Indonesia. You need to know that thing forward and backwards, upside down. Memorize it if you can. It has everything that you need to be successful in your application. I would encourage you to visit the AMINEF website. So I think a lot of grantees don't realize the AMINEF website is separate from the Fulbright website. and it specifically has tons of information about programs in Indonesia. There's entire tabs on the website for programs for Americans that you can read and learn about. And then if you're applying for ETA, I would encourage you to read the ETA monthly highlights. We have years worth of ETA monthly highlights on the AMINEF website, and this will give you a good idea of the day-to-day activities that ETAs do at their site. It'll also give you a good idea of things that you could write about or propose in your application. And I've linked all of those there if we do share this presentation. I would encourage you to work with your FPA. So that stands for Fulbright Program Advisor. Each of you at your university will have an FPA. The FPAs understand the Fulbright process and they know what Fulbright readers are looking for. So the readers who read applications, they know what they're looking for, and they know how to help you write a successful Fulbright application. And then this is something my FPA told me a million times, but I always like to share it with people. Think about what makes you a good fit for Indonesia. So once you've read and digested all of the resources above, how are you a good fit according to what is described in those resources? Start your application early, revise constantly, and then meet with program alumni for advice. So I would say even if you're applying for research and you know an alumni who is an ETA or vice versa, meet with them as they will have a good perspective of what it takes to be successful in Indonesia. And then I'm sure you'll hear this a lot, but research, research, research. Learn as much of you as you can about Indonesia, about the program, etc., and reflect that in your application. So with that, I am finished. I will leave the floor open for a second if anyone has any questions. If not, I'll hand it back to Mita.
Okay, thank you so much, Parker. We will have we will have a Q&A session later, right after Adar's presentation. And I also see there are comments from James Brady. Thank you so much. We will read your comments during the Q&A session later. And as Parker and Rizki mentioned, that AMINEF website is a resourceful one. So I would like to share with you the AMINEF website so that you will have an idea on where to find specific information on the Fulbright US student program. This is AMINEF website, www.aminef.or.id. If you would like to find out more information on the Fulbright US student program, you can click this button, Grants for Americans, and then click Programs and click Fulbright US student program. Depending on which program you want to know, Fulbright English Teaching Assistant or Fulbright US student researchers. And we also have the exact same information on the IIE website, but if you click on the link provided here, you will be directed to specific information on Indonesia. So you can simply browse around and click one of the links. And also, as Parker mentioned about Fulbright ETA monthly highlights, the files can be found here under link and resources, and you can find out what sort of activities the ETAs are doing or were doing at their site, and also what sort of things that can inspire you for you to write down in your applications later. Okay? All right. So I'll stop screen sharing for now, and I would like to welcome Adarsh. Adarsh Srinivasan is a Fulbright US student researcher currently working at the Sustainable Development Goal Center at Pajajaran University in Bandung, West Java, to evaluate Indonesia's cap and trade program with a focus on its potential to support mangrove forest conservation. He is a graduate of Claremont McKenna College with a degree in environment, economics, and politics. The screen is yours, Adarsh.
Okay, thank you so much, Mita. Excited to get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, visible for everyone? Okay, I'll get
Yes.
started then. Before I started, I just wanted to acknowledge the various organizations that have really helped me throughout my time in Indonesia. I'm a current grantee. I'm about two-thirds of my way through, 8 months in, which I'd rather not acknowledge because the time has really flown by and I can't believe that I have just over 4 months left. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the Center for Sustainable Development Goal Studies at Universitas Padjadjaran in Bandung. Uh, they responded to my cold email when I was a college senior looking for an affiliate and agreed to host me at their office in Bandung and lend me support for my research. Currently, I'm based in Jakarta because it's closer to some of my research contacts, and I'm being hosted at a climate-focused NGO called Landscape Indonesia, which was actually started by a Fulbright alum who is Indonesian. So the Fulbright community can be stronger than you think. And last but not least, just the AMINEF Foundation. I think because there's a lot fewer of us in Indonesia than there are in some of the other countries, as Rizki mentioned, we get a lot of individualized support here and resources that I think wouldn't be possible in other countries for Fulbright. Okay, so I'll get started. Uh, Now, why I chose Indonesia. So a lot of my reasons overlap with what Parker and Rizki mentioned about how Indonesia is such a fascinating and overlooked place for Americans. Uh, but I'll focus a little bit more on why Indonesia was really special for my line of research. So, as Mita mentioned, I'm researching Indonesia's carbon cap and trade program. I got interested in this research because I was writing a senior thesis on California's cap and trade program. And I was looking for ways to extend my research. And as you can see in the map on the left of countries with carbon cap and trade programs, Indonesia was one of the first developing countries to launch a carbon cap and trade program in 2023. So I thought that was a great opportunity for me to extend my research. And Indonesia has amazing biodiversity, mangrove forests, rainforests, and because of that, for a long time has been involved in a lot of carbon offset projects through the Red Plus program that was started by the UN. So there's a long history of carbon engagement within Indonesia. And I just wanted to highlight this because I think a lot of the Fulbrighters in Indonesia right now have programs that are focused on carbon, forest conservation, the environment in some way. And I think Indonesia has so much to offer, both in terms of biodiversity and in terms of government and private sector engagement in environment, ESG matters. So yeah, Indonesia is a very exciting place if you're interested in environmental policy, as I am. Okay, moving on. So thankfully, through the Fulbright research program in Indonesia, we got a full 3 months to learn Bahasa Indonesia, which was really great for me because I had almost zero exposure to Indonesian before coming here. I had never been to Indonesia. There aren't a whole lot of resources you can find to learn Indonesian compared to other languages. Uh, and it really shocked me within 3 months how much of a grasp I was able to get of the language. Uh, I've learned it much faster than any other language I've learned by far. And it's already the language I'm most comfortable in other than English. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is how amazing some of these language partners that AMINEF have are, like Wisma Bahasa. So at Wisma Bahasa, during my 3 months there, all of my classes were one-on-one instruction. And my teachers were very focused on the fact that once we entered the class, we were only speaking Indonesian. And at the time, I was also staying in a homestay with an Indonesian family. So day in, day out, I was hearing Indonesian, speaking Indonesian, being forced to practice. And these classes were also really great to just get culturally accustomed to Indonesia because I basically had a one-on-one cultural guide in each of my classes who would talk to me in Indonesian and also help me get introduced to some of the cultural nuances that you can really only understand through the language. And I have some pictures highlighting some really cool parts of Wisma Bahasa, the language school, apart from the classes themselves. We had these discussion classes, as you see in the far left picture, where we discussed political issues in Indonesia with other students. So, it wasn't like I was having to understand Indonesian that was way above my level. I was listening to other students and being able to contribute a little bit. Wisma Bahasa also had a kitchen, and we had some cooking classes where we could cook Indonesian food. And I was there during Thanksgiving, so I hosted a Thanksgiving party for fellow students, for my teachers. That was also a great way of introducing people from Indonesia to more of American culture. And I also gave a final presentation on links between Indian and Indonesian culture. So within those 3 months, it really blew my mind how fast I was able to pick up the language. Okay, we'll keep moving. So I started my actual research grant in December, and a lot of that has been sitting on a computer and doing data analysis, but that's more boring to talk about. And that's not the reason I came to Indonesia. I came to Indonesia because I wanted to visit places, meet people, have in-person meetings. So that's what I'll focus on in this slide. So the picture on the far left is actually a meeting I had in Jakarta with my affiliates at my university. That was at a government office called OJK, which is the Financial Services Authority, which plays a critical role in managing Indonesia's carbon cap and trade program. But why I wanted to highlight it was a month into my research, I was already able to have a meeting at an important government office in Jakarta, which also blew my mind a little bit because I thought that things might move slower here. It would be hard to be introduced to contacts. And while that's definitely true, I think just given the fact that I spoke the language, I had a genuine interest in studying an Indonesian specific policy, Indonesian specific environmental issues. So many people, whether they're in the Indonesian government and private organizations, have been so willing to help me and support me in a way that I didn't think was possible. The two pictures on the center and the right are actually from a trip I did just a few weeks ago to East Kalimantan, which is the eastern side of the Borneo Island, the biggest island in the whole Malay archipelago, if you know, the one that's split between Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. And we actually visited some coal mines to learn more about how they were planning to transition their workers after they could no longer extract coal from the site. And I was actually accompanied by some of my colleagues from Landscape Indonesia, the organization that was founded by a Fulbright alum, who last minute said, "Hey, we're doing this trip to Kalimantan," and invited me to join. And yeah, another example of just the sort of warm hospitality that has made my time here very special. Okay, moving on. Just wanted to highlight some of the other cool conferences and lectures that I've done during my time here. So the picture on the far left is from a conference I attended on mangroves, and this is when I was about 2 weeks into my research grant. And I was super nervous to do this, but I asked a question in Bahasa Indonesia after having just studied the language for 3 months. And to my surprise, the panelist understood the question, gave me a proper answer. And from then on, I was like a celebrity at that conference because no one expected that this bule, which means like a foreigner, could speak Indonesian and could ask a very specific question about Indonesian environmental policy. Everyone wanted to give me their business card, was inviting me to their office. And yeah, just another example of the opportunities that open when, as a foreigner, you show interest in Indonesia. The bottom picture is just from this past week. I was able to give a guest lecture at a university in Jakarta called Prasmul about carbon trading. And there were about 60 students, a lot more than I thought, all studying renewable energy or in the environmental field. And another great way to engage with Indonesian community beyond just the academic affiliates that I'm meeting with. And on the far right is a picture from the Fulbright conference. I think Rizki already shared a picture of that. But I think that was also a really special opportunity to meet not just the other researchers, but the ETAs, the scholars, people who are much older than me, had much more experience, and learn about what made them interested in Indonesia, come back to Indonesia, was also really special. Okay, this is my last slide. I'll wrap it up really quickly, but apart from my research, one of the favorite parts of Indonesia for me has been all the volcanoes and mountains that there are in this country. These are just a few that I've hiked so far. On the far left, you have Mount Rinjani in Lombok, which I actually had to camp on the crater rim, which you can see from the picture. The picture is a picture of the crater lake, which is by far one of the most stunning places in terms of natural beauty I visited in Indonesia or maybe the world before. The picture in the center is from a mountain called Tangkuban Perahu, which is actually just north of the city of Bandung. Like it was literally 30 minutes from my apartment, which is still crazy to me that I could go 30 minutes from my apartment and have this active volcano that I could climb. And the picture on the far right is from Bromo, which is near Jogja, Parker's site. And this is a volcano that has like deep spiritual and religious significance for the people there. And we're able to see the temple right next to the volcano, which was really interesting to learn about the native beliefs there. Okay. Oh, quickly, application advice. I'll just highlight two things, like two big misconceptions about Fulbright that I'd heard a lot while I was applying that are totally not true. One is that you need prior or familial connection to Indonesia. Like I had a lot of friends at my university who only thought they could apply to Fulbright if they had studied abroad in a country before, or if they had family from that country before. In my case, I had never been to Indonesia, had no prior connection, but I was still able to show how Indonesia fit into my story and why my background served me well to do a Fulbright in Indonesia. And the second big misconception is that you need to know a professor beforehand who will supervise your research. As Rizki mentioned, you don't necessarily need to apply with one. I cold emailed a bunch of professors and had multiple that were willing to respond. And one thing I just want to highlight is there's a big Fulbright community. There's a lot of Indonesian scholars who have studied either their master's or their PhDs in the US on a Fulbright grant. And this was a great starting point for research contacts and for affiliates because they're familiar with the program, they want to give back to the community, and they're always willing to help. And yeah, last tip is in your application, I know you might be excited about your research, but try to remove academic jargon because what's more important in your application is showing how you'll engage with your local community in Indonesia. Okay, I think that's all from my side. Thank you so much for this opportunity again. I'll pass it back to Mita.
Thank you so much, Adarsh, for the presentation. All right, so I would like to share my screen once more because I would like to show you the AMINEF website to find information on past and current grantees from the US. So if you click on this button, current grantees, you can choose American flag here, and you will see the current grantees, those who are currently in Indonesia doing their research. Now I click Fulbright US student program, and you can see Adarsh photo here, and you will find also other Fulbrighters photo. If you would like to find out more about them, you can simply click their profile. Let's click this one, Anna Runstorm, and then you will see who she is, her research title, her professional affiliation in the US, and also her affiliation in Indonesia. Or if you would like to find out more information on possible fields of study or fields of research for your Fulbright grant, you can simply click on the alumni directory, and then you can choose American flag here, and you can see there are 1,400 names that you can find, and you can apply filter based on the grants that you would like to find out more. For example, here, Fulbright US Student Research, if you click search, you will find almost 400 names who had done or are doing research in Indonesia in various fields: anthropology, geography, environmental science, area studies, and so on and so forth. Hopefully this will give you more ideas on what sort of field of study that you think will be beneficial to do research in Indonesia. And you can also find our Fulbright English Teaching Assistant names under Fulbright English Teaching Assistant, and you will find almost 500 names here. You will find out who they are, where they are placed at in Indonesia, and their current institution once they are back to the US after their program. So this is an alumni database that we update regularly to give more inspiration and motivation to not only the past Fulbrighters for them to get to know each other, but also for potential Fulbright applicants so that they can learn more about the program they are interested in applying for. Okay, now we are entering the Q&A, and for this session, we would like to invite our colleagues from the AMINEF Grants for Indonesians, Grants for Americans, Cecilia and Rizki, who will answer the administrative aspect of the program. Rizki will answer the Fulbright US Student Researcher, and Cecilia will answer the questions on the Fulbright ETA program. Now, I would like to read one comment here on the Zoom meeting. Thank you so much, Adarsh, for responding to James Brady's comment. But now I would like to let Rizki to add more information if there's any. Is a host affiliation typically a university that we apply though? Can you please add
Thank
more
you.
information on that?
Thanks
Thank you.
for the question, James. So if you're applying for a research program, it doesn't have to be a university now. Now you can affiliate with local foundations, for example, local think tanks, research centers. In the past, yes, you have to affiliate with the university, but nowadays the Indonesian government is changed their regulation and they are more relaxed about affiliations. So if you have any questions about finding an affiliation, just let us know in the email.
Thank you so much, Rizki.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question from James about Bright English Teaching Assistant. Are you a stronger applicant if you already have a TEFL certification? Is that something we should focus on this summer? How is it, Cecilia?
Yeah, thank you, James. The TEFL certification is only one of the criteria we're looking for. But if you, just like what Parker said, if you do not have it, then we have a special support, for the selected candidates to do that course online. So it is only one of the criteria that we're looking at. But yeah, if you have that, then obviously you meet one criteria, something like that.
Ya, terima kasih.
Terima kasih, James, for the question. Thank you, Mbak Cecile, for the response. Another question from Micah Adeline. I think this one should be for Rizki. I lived in Indonesia for a decade as a child and graduated from high school there, although I am only a US citizen. Is prior in-country experience considered a detriment? I graduated in 2021 and would love to return and do language research to help the local community.
Yep. Thanks for the questions, Mika. And yeah, please apply, even though you have lived here in the past as a child, and you're still eligible to apply. And in fact, that will, help you when you are awarded the grant and start the research. It will help you tremendously since you have the experience already as a, living here and as a researcher. And that's a good point, actually. So yeah, we look forward to receiving your application, actually.
Okay, thank you so much, Rizky. And I would like to invite anybody in the Zoom meeting to raise their hand so that you can address your questions directly to Rizky, Cecilia, or Adarsh, or Parker, if any. While waiting, I would like to check the AMINEF Facebook page live, if there's any questions or comments there. Okay, so far, no questions from the page. And I will also check the comments on the Zoom meeting, if there's any. Okay, no more questions on the Zoom meeting. So I hope it means that all information, all experience and tips are clear. And I hope that you are all convinced to apply for the Fulbright program in Indonesia. Okay, next I would like to ask one question to each US Fulbrighter. I'll start with Parker. Uh, this is you have not been briefed before, yeah? This is a surprise question.
I'm kind of nervous.
If you could redo your Fulbright ETA experience in Indonesia,
Hmm.
what things you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things that I would have done differently. Number one, I would have known a lot more about Indonesia before I came here, and a lot more about Indonesian culture. I think that would have definitely given me a stronger foundation to be successful here. Um, and then number two, I would have done as much language training as I could before I got here. I didn't come here with any really experience in Indonesian language. And I definitely, like Adarsh mentioned, that's something that I definitely think can help you be very successful here. So I think those are probably the two things that I would have done differently. Otherwise, as far as my time during a grantee, it was all phenomenal, and I have no regrets.
All right, thank you so much. And what are you looking forward to next in the next coming months or weeks?
Okay, I guess I'm looking forward to engaging more with my host institution. I hope to apply for like the special AMINEF funds to do a host engagement project because a lot of my engagement so far has been directly with my professors. And I hope to have more broader engagement with like the entire student body. Uh, Over the next 4 months, I'm planning to get a lot more into the writing part of my research, hopefully getting a paper ready that I could submit for publication in a journal, but also having an executive summary of my research that I could deliver to the contacts I have in the various Indonesian ministries and government agencies to ensure that the work I've been doing over this year doesn't just float off in the void, that it has a real impact on the development of the cap and trade program in Indonesia. And I'm confident that I have the resources and the backing to make that happen.
Thank you so much. So, one last question for both of you. If do you have any additional tips on applying for the Fulbright program that you would like to add if the potential applicants are specifically uh, focusing on applying for Indonesia? Parker first, maybe?
I think that my ultimate tip would be to just do it. You never really know how it will turn out. As far as applications go for programs, it's large, but it's not like the largest in the game.
Mm.
So it's definitely something that I would suggest just do it. Do as much research as you can. And if you're passionate about it, I think that will show in your application. But yeah, do it. You'll never know until you try, right?
True. Correct. Any more additional information or tips from Adarsh?
Yeah.
Silakan.
Mostly I just bump up what Parker says, just do it. You'll likely not have all the answers when you're applying. There's a lot of things, especially if you're doing research, you'll only find out once you come to Indonesia and start talking to people because it's really not clear on government websites or news articles. So, you need to have a research plan, obviously, but you don't need to have every single little detail figured out a year before your research while you're sitting in the US, because that's simply not possible. And I think AMINEF and everyone who's reading our applications acknowledges that. And I'd also just rehash the misconceptions I talked about before. You don't need to have some prior connection to Indonesia. Neither me or Parker had been to Indonesia before. And you don't need to have an academic connection beforehand. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I have to agree on that comment that the best application is the one that is sent, right? Because that's how you'll find out if you will be qualified for the next Fulbrighter or not. So yes, please do send your applications. Fulbright US Student Program receives yours until October 7, 2025. So the time is quite enough to prepare for perfect application for on your version. So, okay, let me check if there's anybody who would like to raise their hand virtually and ask questions. It seems all good. All right, which means we can go straight to wrap up and closing. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in US time or this morning in Indonesia time. We hope this session will give you a clearer picture on the Fulbright US student opportunities in Indonesia. Before we end the session, we would like to invite everybody, if you are willing to.
Mita, sorry.
Yes.
There's one someone who
All
raised
right.
hand.
Okay, Micah, go ahead.
Hello. I was wondering, I'm Micah, and I was wondering, I'm going to be visiting Indonesia soon, and I was thinking of visiting a like university to ask for a letter of recommendation. Is there like a specific format that I should use when asking for that? Do you have any recommendations there?
For like the format of the letter of invitation from the university. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Rizki, would you like to help on that question?
Sure. Thank you for the questions, Micah. And there is no specific format for the letter of invitation, but please make sure that the letter actually highlights their support on your program, like their familiarity with your research itself, and the types of supports that they will get. They will give you, for example, if they will give you an access to the library or to their research. Yeah database, something like that. And that's pretty much all. So it's pretty flexible letter with standard format.
Oh,
Okay.
so I had a second
Yes.
question, if that's all right. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
The second question is, I saw that on the Fulbright website, it said that researchers are expected to jointly publish a paper with Indonesian colleagues. The nature of my research would be involving Indonesian language consultants. But would that be insufficient? Is there a requirement for having other academics involved as well, in addition to participants?
So yeah, that's a requirement from the Indonesian government about the joint publication that is expected after the research is done. So it doesn't have to be published within your current year. But yes, the publication should be with your affiliation. If you're looking for affiliation, as you mentioned earlier in your previous questions with the Indonesian host university, then that university and the professor that you will work with is the one that should co-publish with you and not the language consultant. Is that answer your question? I hope so. If not,
Yes, thank you.
okay.
Thank you so much, Micah, for the questions. I think it will be helpful, Rizki, if you could also drop the email address of AMINEF Grants for Americans team, so that if any prospective Fulbright applicants here joining us in this Zoom meeting, if they have questions, they can get in touch with you directly. All right, please see your Zoom comments. Rizki already writes down the email address that you can all send your email to regarding the program, Fulbright US Student Researcher or Fulbright English Teaching Assistant. Thank you so much, Rizki. Okay, so as I mentioned before, let's take a group photo. So if you would like to be in the photo, please turn on your camera. We will take one screenshot group photo for everybody here. Okay. Let's see. All right, thank you so much for joining us in this group photo. I would like to start the countdown. 3, 2, 1, Fulbright. Looks great, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here in the group photo session. And later you will also find the group photo uploaded on our AMINEF Flickr account, AMINEF Fulbright Indonesia. And as mentioned earlier, this Zoom meeting is recorded and we will upload the recording on our AMINEF YouTube account. And the recording of this event will be automatically available on AMINEF Facebook page live. So if you have friends or colleagues or networks who are not yet here in this Zoom meeting, please feel free to send the link of the video later so that they can watch for them if you would like to find out more about Fulbright US student in Indonesia. As a reminder, this program is calling for applications, is receiving applications through October 7, 2025. Please visit the IIE website for the detailed information, but please visit the AMINEF website if you would like to be directed to specifically Indonesia section for starting your application. Okay, and one last thing, we would appreciate if you could fill in our post-event survey. We want to know your comments or inputs regarding this event. And one last thing, stay tuned on the AMINEF website and social media platforms for other events or news. And we hope to see you in Indonesia, hopefully someday at AMINEF office when you are already a Fulbright US student grantees. Have a great evening to all of you in the US and also good morning to all of you in Indonesia. See you again soon sometime. Thank you.